Hello everyone and welcome to r/entitled parents, where an entitled Karen gets a taste of the deliciously deciduous justice known as tree law. Now for our first story. Entitled mother was disappointed that I had grown out of my allergies. My mom was an entitled mom with narcissistic tendencies, FML. Long story, on mobile, English isn't my first language, so excuse me for any formatting errors or misspelled words. Here goes. I was allergic to pretty much everything. I was about 11 years old when she told me I had to be hospitalized for 6 months to find out everything I'm allergic to. And I believed her. She's my mom. Of course you're supposed to believe your mom, right? The years went on. I had to stop eating pretty much all fruits, vegetables, spices. The only exception was salt and pepper. Had to eat food clean from additives and colorants. It was hard, but I managed. When I then met my future husband, his mom and him started telling me that this isn't normal. When we moved in together, my mom went ballistic and was sure I was gonna die, that my husband isn't going to take care of me like he's supposed to. I started seeing the insanity. After some encouragement from my now ex and his side of the family, I went to a doctor and asked about the 6 months of hospitalization to figure out my allergies. You should have seen the look on his face. He explains that it takes a maximum of a couple hours to find out, no matter what the allergy, and that if something happens, there's medicine for that and doctors on standby. So I made the appointment. It's been over 15 years, so I'm paraphrasing, but I'm doing my best to remember how the discussion went. Entitled mother.
You're being insane to risk your life like this for a man.
Me. There's doctors on standby. It's safe, Mom. Entitled mother. Sighs in frustration.
You should call it off immediately.
Me. Why?
Why? Because it's irresponsible. Remember all the times you had to be home due to having issues with your throat?
I knew she was right, but my ex was persistent, and I'm glad he was. I had the tests done and then called my mom. Mom, guess what? Entitled mother. Disinterested. Me. I'm only allergic to nuts. Entitled mother.
Silence.
Me. Aren't you happy? Entitled mother. Disinterested.
It could be a false negative.
Me. What?
Doctors are wrong all the time.
You don't believe me? Sure I do. Disinterested monotone voice. It's good news. Me. Just silence. Entitled mother.
Anything else?
Me. No. And I hang up. I was so bummed out. Nothing made sense. I thought she'd be happy I grew out of my allergies. That's when I started to really understand something was wrong with my mom. Why would she be disappointed that I was better? It's been years, but this phone call still stands out in my mind and my hands shake. I have several stories from my life if you want to hear. Things I thought was normal that now I know they aren't. Thanks for reading. OP, I suggest you look up something called Munchausen syndrome. Essentially, a Munchausen patient makes up illnesses to gain sympathy or attention from doctors and others. It sounds like your mother may have something called Munchausen by proxy, where she lives off the special treatment you get for accommodating all these made-up allergies. I'm no psychologist, though, but it might be something worth looking into. And now on to the next story. Entitled mother gives her daughter my GCSE sketchbook. For context, I needed to pick up my sketchbook full of my GCSE coursework in art classes, but my horrible anxiety made me email my teacher asking if she could send it to me instead. But I was out and my sketchbook was given to my neighbor. I was getting home from school as usual today, and I noticed a letter on the door, and it's pretty much saying how I wasn't home, so my sketchbook was given to my next door neighbors. I give myself 10 minutes to calm my nerves and go ask for it. Eventually, I calm down a little and knock on the door, and she opens it, clearly expecting someone else, as her face drops. I can barely think straight, and I'm biting my hands. I have dermatophagia. Basically, I chew off my skin from stress. I can't explain, so it's best to look it up. And she looks annoyed. I can see her young daughter in the kitchen behind her, looking through my previously packaged sketchbook. Entitled mother, in a really sarcastic sounding voice.
Can I help you?
Me, sort of muffled because I'm biting. I got this note. I show her the note. And my sketchbook has been delivered here, and I'd like it now if you have it. Entitled mother.
I would, but I've already told my daughter she can have it.
I'm already more stressed than I was before, and I get that feeling in my stomach that I want to run away. Me. It's my GCSE sketchbook, and it's very She cuts me off.
Why are you mumbling? Are you R-word or something?
She laughs. I stay silent, and I know I'm biting harder because it starts to hurt. Miss, I have dermatophagia. I can't help it. Can I please have my sketchbook?
I've told you, it's for my daughter now. F off, R-word.
She slams the door, but it just so happens my girlfriend is walking up the street to see me, and I'm freaking out. Luckily, she pretty much decided to move into my room when we started dating, lol. And she knows how to handle this by now. I tell her what happened and she knocks at the entitled mother's door. She opens it and is looking at my height. I'm quite small.
What do you
want? She looks quite scared and does that slow look up to meet my girlfriend's eyes. She looks even more worried when my girlfriend speaks with her thick Russian accent. My girlfriend, tired after work and clearly can't be bothered.
Blue sketchbook, drawings. Everything that was in it must still be in it, and everything must be as you found it.
Entitled mother.
Yes, I'll get that for you.
She closes the door and very quickly comes out with my book. I check and everything is fine and still in there. Apparently, entitled parents will do whatever tall, angry Russian lesbian girlfriends will say. I'm lucky to have gotten my book back. If my girlfriend wasn't there to help me, I wouldn't have gone back for it. We then went inside and she helped me calm down completely, and that was that. She then tells me it's cold and she's going inside and her mouth is apparently as dry as Mother Teresa's skin looks, and I'm standing in the middle of the street in gay silence. TLDR, hot, angry, tall Russian lesbian girlfriend convinces entitled mother to give back my stolen sketchbook. Man, OP, your girlfriend sounds so cool. And now, on to our last story. Karen gets sweet, instant karma for messing with a tree that isn't hers. I was not directly involved in this interaction, but it did occur on the same street I belonged to, and the tree could be seen from my house as it was less than 100 feet away. So some brief backstory is necessary to understand the direness of Karen's situation. Karen, along with her daughter, owns a house in a street along with 7 other people, including me. This street is somewhat private, and although it isn't gated, it shares many resources and services that sets it apart from the rest of the community. Basically, it was originally empty land in the middle of an already existing neighborhood bought privately by a group who built houses and sold them. For these reasons, this street has an HOA representative, and they share things like lawn maintenance and street repair costs. For example, the street splits the costs for repairing stuff like street lights, and the people that mow the lawns do the entire street at a time. Karen and her daughter are rarely seen in this small street, and they instead rent their house out to newcomers every few months or so. I've only seen them in person a few times since I moved here. On their most recent return a few days ago, they decided to have the tree out in front of their yard trimmed down before the next tenant arrives. Unfortunately, this tree belongs to the street and she has no jurisdiction tampering with it, and she knows it. She made a half-assed attempt to call the HOA board, and when they did not reply right away, she took the initiative to cut the tree to her desires. This morning, a group of workers came in a truck and loud power tools to cut several branches off this large tree. The Indian dude came out first to complain, and later came the old lady. They've both been living here for a long time and understand the rules clearly. The conversation was distant from my house, especially since I chose not to go outside and join the argument, but it went along the lines of the following. Indian dude: "Hey, you can't cut down that tree." Karen:
Well, it's on my property.
"Actually, it's not. Tell them to stop cutting it. You need to contact the HOA first."
I did, and they didn't respond, so it's no big deal if I just trim it, okay?
Old lady:
Any change affects the value of the entire street and every house on it. You have to stop it.
Oh my god, it's just a tree. Give me a break, okay?
For those that don't understand, the entire street sort of has a common theme to it where every house has a similar design, and each having a tree is part of said design. Stripping this mature tree down to a couple of branches completely ruins the look of the street. Indian dude walks up to the workers who are basically already finished. "Guys, please stop for now." Karen steps in front of Indian dude.
Hey, back off.
Indian dude puts his hands on her shoulder to push her away.
Stop being aggressive.
This goes on for about 30 minutes. The entire time Karen is being extremely rude, interrupting people, and basically whining incessantly. Indian dude, old lady, and the other neighbors watching knew they couldn't do anything without contacting the HOA first. They certainly didn't want to touch her, and they couldn't do anything with the workers because they were hired by Karen. This entire time, her daughter didn't say anything and stood at the doorway of her house. The workers continue with the tree, and in no time it was finished. About an hour passes when Indian dude and old lady return with news from the HOA. It was true that Karen couldn't touch the tree, and everybody knew that. But what Karen didn't know was that the consequences were extremely straightforward and relentless. When they began to explain to Karen her remaining options, she had a smirk of victory on her face, but it didn't take long for it to be completely wiped away. HOA policies dictate that she has to completely replace the tree, which means that she needs to hire people to come dig the tree out, pay for a new tree, pay for it to be planted, and pay for the lawn that will be inevitably torn up as the tree is being replaced. If she does not comply, her house will be put on lien and no longer be considered an extension of our private street. For those that aren't fluent in real estate terms like me, this means that Karen cannot sell, rent, or refinance her property until said conditions are met. Even if she complies right away, her new tenant will be delayed at least a week or more while the tree is being dug up. This is such a sweet and fitting end to her entitled attitude. In total, she will be set back thousands of dollars for essentially nothing, except lacking consideration of those around her. I'm not entirely clear on the costs, but I expect it to be at least $10,000. Moral of the story? Don't F around with trees. They have countless lawsuit and HOA strings attached to them. And don't be a bee to your neighbors. Edit. I reread my post and decided that I didn't do as good a job as I wanted to explaining why the Karen deserves her justice. I forgot to mention that she did flip everyone off and threatened to call a lawyer. She acted really childish overall and kept repeating the same phrase of something like,
"You can't touch me, I did nothing wrong,"
over and over while interrupting people. Her daughter wasn't too much better, but you can't really blame her for trying to defend her mother a little bit. She probably just didn't understand what her mother really did. Her daughter was like,
"Stop shouting, don't get aggressive," etc.
Edit 2. After talking with some of my neighbors, it turns out Karen was a bee long before I moved here. A long time ago, there was a rule that you couldn't park your car in your driveway, which most people thought was stupid. I think it's stupid too. The rule was set when the street was built because people wanted it to look nice or something. Apparently, Karen took this rule way too seriously and kept on giving tickets to the old lady's husband. I mean, come on, what a way to get to know your next door neighbor. Before long, the entire street voted the law out 7-1. Guess who wanted to keep it? Karen also locked the back gate of the street closed and didn't give the key to anyone because she thought she was entitled to control who gets to use the community gate. Too bad I wasn't there at the argument because I could have transcribed more of what they said. Karen kept on trying to change the subject and put blame on the old lady for letting her bamboo fall into her yard. Bruh, old lady was sick that day, so what an a-hole for arguing with a sick old lady. I'd also like to mention that the trees, yes, trees, I realized after looking closer at her yard, she cut were 2 cypress trees and a deciduous tree that grows red seeds in hard pods that I forget the name of. The cypress trees she cut were towering and magnificent. She trimmed them down halfway and they will never regrow because they're both at least 20 years old. That's all I can remember to add. Thanks for reading. Man, I think that's the first time I've ever heard of an HOA not being the bad guy in a story. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to receive more videos like this every day.